Hello! I'm making 9 pints of tomato sauce, and I'm starting with a half bushel of tomatoes to get there. I wash the tomatoes, core them, cut them into quarters, and fill a 4-gallon stock pot with the quartered tomatoes. I put the stock pot on a burner and I set the temperature dial to 3 out of 9, so that's kind of high-low heat. And I let them go for about an hour, so a lot of liquid builds up in the pot. Then I stir it around and make sure nothing's stuck. I want to get all the way to the bottom of the pot, and I want to make sure that everything is loose and floating. So when I can get the whole vat to spin easily, I'm happy. Then 4 or 5 hours later, a lot of liquid is cooked out, but I want to get it down till the stock pot is less than half full. These are finally looking about ready to turn into sauce. My hand crank food mill has a twisted blade on the bottom that pushes stuff through holes. As the stuff comes out the holes, a wire spins through and kind of smears it off the bottom of the food mill. And there are hooks on the sides of the mill that let me hang it on the side of a sauce pot. I use a small sauce pot to scoop the cooked tomatoes out of the stock pot and load up the food mill. I like to load it up all the way to the top. This way I might only have to mill 2 or 3 loads. Once it's full, you turn the crank. First liquid comes out the bottom, then you get more and more tomato pulp, and you see that the seeds and the skins get left behind. Every now and then you got to back it up to scrape the stuff off the bottom so that more can go through. And then I occasionally will stop and scrape the skins and the seeds down so the blade can make a few more passes over them and squeeze every last bit out of the skins. Finally, I scrape out the seeds and the skins between loads, so I'll probably have to do 1 or 2 more to finish off what I've cooked. I finished milling. The original 4 gallons of tomatoes is now about 1.5 gallons, and I'm going to set that on the stove to cook it down a little bit more. I can't emphasize enough how important it is to rinse this thing out as soon as you're finished with it. That stuff will dry on and you may never get it out of the holes in the bottom of the food mill. If you get stubborn seeds or particles that just won't come off, a vegetable brush will be very useful here. Since you have to heat water in the canning pot anyway, why not put the jars in with it? The handy rack in this canner lets me lift all the jars out but keep them hot. I heat the lids and the rims in a separate pot, but not quite to boiling. And the sauce itself, now about just over 1 gallon, I also keep hot. Lift a jar out of the canning pot and empty the water back into the pot. Then add some citric acid to the jar, 1/4 teaspoon per pint, or you could use a tablespoon of commercial lemon juice. Use a measuring cup or a ladle to scoop sauce out of the pot and pour it into the jar. Leave about a 1/2 inch of headspace. That's the space from the top of the sauce to the top of the jar. Then make sure the rims and the threads of the jar are clear of sauce. Fish a canning lid out of the hot water, put it on the jar, and then fish a band out of the hot water and put that on the jar. I think it's hard for most people to screw a canning band on too tightly. Most instructions say finger tight, so tighten it down pretty well. But maybe go easy if you're a weightlifter. You can just drop that in by hand into the pot. but use lifters to take the next jar out. As I said, pour the water back into the canning pot, at least for the first jars. Near the end, you need to empty the jars into the sink, because if you keep pouring the water in the pot and adding all this tomato sauce in closed jars, pretty soon you're going to have too much water in the pot and it'll overflow. When you've filled all the jars and get them all in the rack, lower the rack into the pot and wait for the water to return to a boil, which may be instantaneous. Set the timer for 35 minutes for the pints and put the lid on the canning pot. Then go read or do whatever, clean up. And when the timer beeps, come back, lift the pot off the heat, turn off the stove, open her up, and lift the jars out of the canning pot. Use a jar lifter to take the jars out of the rack and set the jars on a towel on the counter or on a cooling rack. They're going to need to cool for 6 to 12 hours. When the jars reach room temperature, take the bands off, and if the jars are at all sticky, wipe them clean. Then store them in a cool, dark place, and the sauce will be good for a year or longer. You know you've succeeded when you hear the jars pop. A lot of people who can listen for that pop and find it a very satisfying sound.